Our next guests have been connected to BYU football for all of their lives. Duff Tittle, the Senior Assistant Athletic Director for Broadcast Relations at BYU. Brett Pyne is the Assistant Athletic Director for Football Strategic Communications, both are Orem Tigers.
That's big with Dave, by
both
the way.
Both are KOHS alums. This is the night where Steve Garrett's turning in his grave because the three of us are on a global live stream.
Wait, I want to know, we're going to talk all about this book, but, what numbers are these? Is this in the first 10 books? Are we seeing any of the,
Yeah, probably. Yeah, I think so.
That's what I'm talking about right now. That's awesome.
All right, let's dive into this.
Dave got his when his alphabet book.
Yes.
He brought in the first box he had. He didn't open it, and he opened it in here.
We opened it right on the show.
And I was like, "Ooh, this is the first book. This is the first book."
Yeah, but it's out, and you guys have been working the circuit, and we're glad that you're on the Wise
awesome,
Guys
you guys.
today. So 100 years of BYU football. Let's start with the easiest of all the questions. And we've got some time tonight, so we're really going to dive into this thing, and people are going to want it. I spent the weekend looking at it, and I got some questions. But what was the hardest thing, Brett, deciding what goes in or what stays out in a 100-year book?
Oh, my gosh. There's so much that goes into everything you're researching and looking at, and it's impossible to tell all the stories. I mean, you don't even scratch the surface, really. I mean, you're dealing with a 100-year period.
Yeah.
So I think it was, I think it's always harder the ones you don't put in sometimes, but we went through a process that took several years, kind of evolving and getting to the point where we got everything that we ended up getting the final.
Now, you guys are longtime friends, but did you get after each other and say, no, this has to go in? Blaine and I were going to know that we have to ask this question. No, we don't have to ask this question. What was it like working together and making those kind of choices of what gets in such an historic book?
Well, like Brett said, it's a process that's lasted for several years. Before we even started to write, we were coming up with outlines and things that we would do with it. So I think we were pretty good with the outline when we got started, but as you go through the process of writing, you find these stories and you stumble in. During the research, you come up with stuff that's like we didn't even know. I mean, combined 50 years working with football and athletics, and we found a lot of stuff that we didn't even know existed. So,
could you have gone another 100 pages?
Oh, easily.
We could just for pictures alone.
Volumes, probably. Yeah. Really.
Well, that's one thing. As you mentioned, pictures. I mean, BYU photo. You have to really, and we tried to acknowledge that in the book and let people really know the great professionals and, I mean, really top of their industry that we have here at BYU. And you don't always understand that. We do because we work with them all the time. But
good point.
Phenomenal people that are really part of that legacy. The reason why we know what Blaine looked like throwing passes and all these things is because of people like that for years have been providing the kind of art and content and images that you'll see in this book.
What kinds of things are BYU fans going to learn as they go through this book and read this book? What can they look forward to? Give us I
mean, we know we won the national championship.
Yeah,
we got the Heisman.
We know 96 they were really good, but what can people expect when they pick this up and start going through it?
Well, what we tried to do was to just not rehash the great moments. Yeah. We wanted to have those great moments be told by those who were there, whether it was a player, coach, administrator, somebody that was involved in it and could share their recollections of what happened. And so I think there's a lot of really cool stories. You may remember the game and you remember the final or score and all that, but what happened in that final drive?
Yeah.
Or what happened in the huddle? Or what was discussed about at halftime or on the sidelines.
Or why anyone would show up in orange uniforms.
Isn't that something?
I was fascinated. I made a note on that because, you every now and then you see a random picture of it and you're like, I don't even know if that's true or not. But in the book, it is true. How did the orange uniforms come about?
Well, that's actually a good question for Duff because he researched that area. But it's kind of crazy because most people think, is it Royal? Is it Navy? What are we? But evidently orange as well.
Yeah, Denver Bronco, orange and blue.
Yeah, what's the inspiration of that? There's a whole big piece on it.
They had a quarterback in the early 40s who was kind of small, and the coach was concerned that he wouldn't be able to see the wide receivers across the line of scrimmage. Of course, those linemen back then were a whole 6'2" and weighed 135.
A 6'2" was a tall guy back then, right?
I know, right? And so he thought, well, we need to have some color so he can see the difference between, remember in the 40s, there wasn't a lot of color in uniforms either.
Yeah.
There was a lot of bland uniforms. And so that was the idea. Fortunately, it only lasted 2 seasons.
And
They went 2 seasons with orange unis.
about a season and a half, and then they quit wearing them.
That's
I've
awesome.
noticed we've never had like a throwback game of bringing the orange ones back. Brett, you're in the strategic department. Are we ever going to see that happen?
The closest we came was probably at Rocky Top, but
the Rocky Top.
That game worked out well, and that's in the book too. But
One thing I learned that I did not know.
There it is. Oh my goodness. Let's hold this up so people can see that. Look at those babies right here. We can't really zoom in that much.
It's like we're playing Oklahoma State.
You can get the idea. Oh my goodness.
Yeah, that's us in those orange.
That's crazy.
There's
Now, of
also
course, color photography didn't exist back then, so we had to color that image to make it look like what they would have looked like.
Yeah.
That's good enough for me.
All right.
1953, Utah and BYU are playing, and they're playing up in Salt Lake. It happens to be Thanksgiving. How does that game get on NBC?
well, I tell you what. You think about this. Early television, Dave, that's your business.
Yeah. There wasn't even color TV for a few years after.
Right.
The year before this was the first year that they'd had any national TV games.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So this is the second year, and they're picking
About 10
one
games,
game
I
a
think.
week
Yeah.
in essence.
Mhm.
And the fact that BYU and Utah were selected from that entire group of possible games across the country to play. And then there were 60 million people that watched the game. Think about that number, Dave.
Yeah.
That's Thanksgiving. That's the power of Thanksgiving.
Crazy though. That's like
Yeah, I think
audiences are too segmented now unless it's a Super Bowl or national championship game to get that kind of audience. It's nuts.
Yeah, and I really think it really speaks to, over the years, the broadcasting's always been a tremendous part of the legacy of BYU athletics.
Yeah.
And this is an early example of that. We touch on different things in the book that are, whether it's radio broadcasting, television broadcasting, but the fan base that BYU has, the tremendous amount of interest that's out there nationally and for BYU worldwide, really.
Yeah.
But this kind of speaks to that because this was really an early opportunity before, people nationally didn't know anything about BYU football in those days. It wasn't a known entity. We weren't winning championships right and left and all that. But BYU's game, 60 million people watched it. And, it's an early beginning of what the brand of BYU football could be and the notoriety that would come through the success of the program going forward.
Duff Tittle, Brett Pyne, our guests on the Wise Guys tonight, presented by Brady Plus. They're the authors of the new book, 100 Years of BYU Football, available now at Deseret Book. We've got the link to where you can go to buy one in our live stream. And for those listening on the podcast, deseretbook.com.
Yeah.
That's the best place to go. And we're walking down memory lane here. I think we're so into the future and the right now of our generation of it's got to be big and splashy and phenomenal right now, but you can't appreciate where you are until you really understand where you've come from. And the celebration of BYU football now, you can go right back to 1922 with someone who had enough guts to start a football program.
Yeah, really.
And then this journey takes you along the way. What key moments outside of the big ones did you see as turning points in the program that we will read about in this book?
I think one of the big things that we found in the early 1950s, Ernest Wilkinson became the president of BYU. Mm-hmm. At that time, I kind of look back on our history and I think, why could we not win? Why were we kind of the dog every year?
Yeah.
And we found that we were really playing on an uneven playing field because of the lack of scholarships in the athletic department at BYU. Where other schools were offering athletic awards, BYU had very few. And eventually, President Wilkinson decided to champion that. And I think when you look at that, 1953, 1954, and then there was a bit of a turning point. Then they built the stadium in the early 60s. And Tommy Hutzpah comes in, he brings in the Marines, and all of a sudden we have some talent. We have the scholarships to go with it.
The wise move to bring in the Marines.
Yeah.
Yes, for sure.
You've got to, if you need something, get the Marines.
Hey, Roger Gillivan on our chat says, not just one great book. I bought my book at Deseret Book in Denver.
Wow.
So there you go. So that's a nice endorsement from our Denver fan base.
That is awesome. We were told
that.
Friday that it's in all Desert Books now. So
Fantastic.
you'll be able to pick it up if you have one in your area.
Picking up on Duff's point, when we think of the stadium that you played in, that was expanded, and we've got 60,000+ people that can come watch a live event there. But on that stretch, going from the late 50s into the early 60s, early to mid 60s, right before we won the first conference championship as a program, we had 6 straight losing seasons. But it was in that stretch that President Wilkinson and the BYU leadership determined that they really needed to invest in building a new stadium. On the footprint where the stadium is now, not the same size, obviously, it is now, but the original Cougar Stadium that was built there moved from where now the Richards building is, the stadium that was there.
Right.
But it also speaks to our fan base, if you think about it, because even in the context of 6 straight losing seasons, what was going on is, how do we grow? How do we get better? How do we accommodate the interest that's there from our fans? And you're investing in that, and you see how it explodes, and it sets up, as you get into the Lavelle Edwards era and what happened that came around the corner.
I remember where I was the night they flipped the switch and lights went on at Wrigley, and then it rained out, and they decided that divine intervention, they didn't want lights at Wrigley, but then they lit them up the next night. I was at BYU. I was doing the news on KBYU FM, and I had that on TV because it was historic. But I was reading in this book the night the lights came on for the first night games at BYU were pretty big deals. There's something about a night game, but that took some work. And a lot of effort, and that story is in here.
Yeah, and like you said, with the other things that happened along the way that were kind of historic, it took a leap of faith. You're playing in a stadium that was first built to house about 10,000. It got to 15. They decided, hey, let's throw some lights on it, right? And
why not?
First one in the Rocky Mountain
We've all
region.
thought of that in the backyard. We're playing
Exactly.
baseball or basketball. It's like, we need some lights.
That's right. And then to go, okay, we need another stadium. So let's go, not 15, let's go 30, and then you build that one in the early 60s, and then to double it again, just 20 years later is quite amazing. But again, it talks to what Brett said. The Cougar Nation was ready, and they just, give us a chance, give us more space.
I remember on my freshman year, we played in the stadium without the end zones. And then we built those end zones in the off season, expanded to 65,000. We had this big opener against Air Force where we were going to win. And here's the moment I remember from that.
I have my moment too. You sure it is.
We have the lead, and we punt the football, and the ball rolls out of bounds inside the 5-yard line. And I'm standing next to Robbie Bosco, and I say this, and so I'm taking the blame for our loss.
You jinxed it?
Because I turned to Robbie and I go, Air Force runs the wishbone. There's no way in the world they're going to drive 99 yards with 2 minutes and something left in the game. And that dang Marty Louthan completed like all but one ball all the way down the field, and they scored, and they beat us in the opener in that new stadium. Yeah. I want everyone out there to know I take full responsibility for that loss. I jinxed us.
I'm got a little bit better after that, though.
Good thing we didn't interview you before the book.
God, we wouldn't want that in there. We wouldn't want that in there. But can you pick? Is it asking too much to say? Are there 4 or 5 biggest moments? I mean, this is 100 years. Can you put your finger on 4 or 5 of the biggest moments in the history of BYU football over these 100 years?
Wow. I think we all have our own perspective on that. That's what's beautiful about this is we talked through this. Brett was like, yeah, but what about this game or that game or this moment? And pretty soon that list that we were trying to keep around 100 became 130. Yeah. And then it's like, and pretty soon you're realizing we're not even going to get to 100 to keep inside the 300 pages that the book is. So,
but there's some big ones, so we want to hear them because there's the national championship, there's the Heisman,
the Miami game,
Oh yeah, that's one of my greatest memories.
Those 3 are on everybody's list. So what are the others?
Yeah, there's maybe what are 2 others?
Well,
so you can pick 2 different ones.
I'll pick one that might be one Duff would pick, but it's something I think is significant that is not super well known. That it's kind of like anything in life. It's like there's all these things that happen as you go, and the significance of what it is you don't realize so much at the time. But a lot of people know this, but not a lot of people know that Lavelle was with the staff as a defensive coach for a number of years through the 60s before he became the head coach. But early in his tenure as the head coach, there was actually a meeting that the players, they started the season 1-3. This is in 74. And things weren't going well. And there was a players only meeting that took place that really ultimately rallied the team. They finished strong, and they go to the first bowl game, which we're having the 50th year anniversary this year.
Right.
Of that bowl game.
And Lavelle had credited that. He says, if it wasn't for that, maybe I would not been around very long, And it's not a game. It's not anything that it's going to register on a stat sheet or anything, but it's something that probably had a very significant
Sure.
And that's the behind the scenes stuff you guys are talking about that people don't know were part of what changed the course of BYU football history.
And it speaks to, Blaine, like you've been in the huddles, you've been in the locker rooms, and it speaks, it's the ownership of the program it's not just a head coach. It's not, there's players that play and everyone knows their names. There's a lot of players that play and no one knows their names, but they were all part of the program, and the ownership that the players have in that program and their impact on it and their stewardship of it during their tenure, it all kind of evolves and grows and makes it to what it's become.
Gary Scheide, who's in this book, has been on this show, and he said had he not gotten cheap shotted against Oklahoma State, they would have won that field.
That's right.
Yeah,
That's right.
But he was out and they had an option quarterback back in, and suddenly the passing attack was grounded, and they lose that thing 16-6. But the Cowboys will be here for the first time this fall, and Scheide will be there, and I think he's going to come yell at people. I'm not quite sure what he's going to, but he's still mad about how that all went down in 1970. It was 75. The game.
74.
What was it? New Year's Day? Was it New Year's Day?
No, I think it was right before the New Year's.
Before then.
Yep.
All right, what's yours, Duff? Pick a nugget out.
Oh, there's the first ESPN game live game on television that Blaine threw the very first pass in.
Yeah.
Blaine made me say that.
No, I didn't.
He told me he'd take me to play golf.
As soon as he went there, I knew where he was going. I was pretty excited about it, actually.
Right. Yeah, and I will mention that Blaine is quoted in the book.
Yes, he is. Yeah.
And so is your father.
Good. Yeah, he should be in there. The Cougar Club's been a big
my picture's
part
in
of
here, and Duff and Brett probably didn't know my picture's in here.
Yes, it
I
is.
bet we did.
Do we have the Jim McMahon picture?
Oh, the one that's in the elevator and on the wall? No, you just had the team picture from '84, and I'm right in the middle of that baby.
One thing that's so great on every single page, and we'll go back again because you guys talked about it earlier. The guys at BYU Photo are amazing.
Oh, it
and
is.
Every single page in this book are cool pictures, many that no one's ever seen before, but they take you right there into that moment. Here's one where I think Riley's gonna throw that 2-point conversion to win the bowl game. Here's Taysom Hill running up the middle against Hawaii, his first legitimate moment. And pictures are so powerful. And BYU Photo, and you guys, that's a perfect match.
Yeah, we couldn't have done this book without everything that they did to help us out. Jaron Wilkie's the current director over there.
Mark Philbrick was before him.
Mark Philbrick was a legend for sure. And this book is filled with their imagery. There's over 400 photos in the book.
Here's one right here that you'll have to buy the book to appreciate, but that's Jordan Leslie getting tackled, the ball's up in the air before he made that Lynn Swan catch against Texas. That picture is awesome. That's great.
We tried to dig deep too, because there's been other books done in the past, and we tried to go way into the archives and see if we could find some things that nobody had ever seen before.
Yeah, it's the kind of book where you sit down and say, I'm going to take a look at this, and an hour later, you're going to be reading and you're going to be looking through pictures, and you're going to say, I got to come back and look at that later. I need to come back and read this story later, because it covers a lot of ground, and the graphics and the pictures are beautiful.
Kevin from Gilbert, Arizona, saying hello. We ran down the big list of folks from all over the globe before you guys got here, before our Andy Reid interview. Andy Reid it was great. This night worked out great because Andy Reid's such a big part of what's in this book of history, and he's continuing to make it. But you got guys like Andy Reid that just make everything, just extend everything.
Well, and that speaks to the incredible legacy that, this BYU football program is. I mean, you have a guy that was an offensive lineman and a great team player and a graduate assistant with the program. And I know he talked about Mike Holmgren and the various people that came through the program and how that came about and how some of these early coaches Lavelle brought in to help develop the passing game. Those kinds of stories are in here, and it all is such an incredible part of that legacy. And now you have Andy, who one of the last things we did get in the book before the publishing deadline was the fact that he just won another Super Bowl.
Yeah.
And, he's a Hall of Fame coach and just one of the many people that represent BYU football in such a positive way.
He on the show tonight, he just went and taught or spoke at a offensive line coaching thing in the NFL. And one of his assistants put together his coaching tree, like he'd never looked at it. And he goes, yeah, there were like 13 guys that were head coaches in this league.
Amazing.
And like he didn't even realize it. But that's Andy. He just puts his head down, right? Yeah. But that's Lavelle's legacy as well. Like you can take Mike Holmgren's coaching tree. You can take Andy Reid's coaching tree. You can take Brian Billick's coaching tree. Yeah. It all comes back to BYU football, and it comes back to this, which is really cool. That's quite a legacy that's spread out throughout football across the country.
We told him if he'd set it up like an Amway operation, he'd have a fortune.
He'd be making
all those guys out working for him.
That's right.
Winning games. So next year when the 101 year edition comes out of this book, it'll be because it leads you right into the Big 12. And now we got year 2 coming up in the Big 12. So let's step out of the book as we discuss history. And you guys cover the Cougars. You manage the Cougars. You orchestrate how they do things with the media and all of that stuff. So here comes year 2. Vegas says maybe 4.5 wins, which seems terribly low.
We're all like about. The players that have come out have been like, no way.
But the first year Big 12 experience is over. What do you expect for year 2?
Well, I expect that we'll be ready and that we'll show our fans that there's a reason why they follow the football program and they enjoy it. Kalani's leadership and Kalani also, contributed to the book as well.
Yeah, he wrote the last chapter. Right?
Yeah, Ty Detmer wrote the foreword, and then the afterword is Kalani.
Yeah.
I didn't even know there was an afterword, but that's what it's called.
Well, if you got Kalani, you let him write it. That's what you do, right?
Absolutely.
It's the word after. Yeah. I mean, the guys are excited. As you know, this time of the year is always a lot of optimism. And, it's like working today. We were doing a bunch of interviews for the Deep Blue series that you guys will debut later on BYU television.
We love it.
And there's some fun stories coming there that we'll have. But I think the coaches and the players, they're working hard and excited. And really, you look at this schedule, and, it's a pretty tough schedule. We have a lot of teams that we didn't play last year as well. And so there's just a lot of new things and exciting new things that we'll experience, including old things like some of the rivalries that we're going to have again.
Arizona finally come back. We go to
Utah
Tempe.
back. Yeah.
But 4.5 seems grossly low. I mean, we got a tough home schedule, but they're home games instead of Stillwater on Thanksgiving weekend when it's raining and cold. It's here late at night on a Friday with the place hopping and
when
stuff.
When the fans go bonkers.
Do you think that the Cougs feel like they're way under the radar? We've had a few of the guys on, and it feels that way.
I would say Brett's probably a better one to answer that question, but I would say from what I've seen for sure, Brett spends his days with them. And I just noticed that the last couple of games, there was kind of it didn't end the way they wanted it to last year. And I saw how, as we started into this season in spring football, there's been a renewed enthusiasm and effort. It's good to go in and see what you're up against, and realize, hey, we got to get better. And there's things that we know we can do because we've now been through it.
We had Mark Comer on a couple of times, just a couple of weeks ago, most recently, talking about the Royal Blue Collective and the NIL world, which is on the outside of the world you guys are in. But what we haven't asked really, Brett, is how has that impacted your world, this NIL business that's now going on really kind of in this outside the campus bubble? And how do you manage that? How different is it now?
Well, obviously, from years ago, before any of that was taking place, there was a lot of ways that we would help athletes to be able to to build their own brand, so to speak, and appearances that they do with people like you guys or other things that we do internally with our own channels or our media platforms, our social media platforms, and everything that we're doing, like the Deep Blue that we were talking about. Now obviously there's an element where there's a lot of things that they're able to do, kind of outside of what we're doing, and so it's really just kind of been a little bit of a dance, is getting used to, what are the steps that we're all trying to hit, and making sure we're still in some sort of unison there, and obviously it's exciting for the players that they get a chance to benefit from some of those things.
Cody Epps was on the show last week talking about his golf tournament, which was Saturday.
Pretty
and
cool.
I understand it was a big success, and guys hadn't been in a position to do that. And he put his flyer up, and we showed it, and like 5,000 sponsors. Like, could you find another one to put on that page? And had a good time with it. But you could see that it was NIL as it probably should be, helping a player develop his brand and giving him support to go do that, which will last long after the touchdowns are caught.
Well, and I think one of the things too that it does is, and this is something that Coach Satake is always kind of preached and is part of the culture of his programs. His program is that it's serving and it's being out there in the community and not just it's a more holistic way of looking at how they do things, and that's really an emphasis that he's always had in the program. And so when they're able to do things that brings who they are into a little bit more interaction with the community, that's we've talked about Cougar fans, throughout this evening, just talking through the book and everything that goes on with the growth of the program. But that's an important part of it too, is that these are kids that really are great people, and they really do care about the fans, and they really do want to have that kind of positive interaction with them, and they want to succeed for them as well. Obviously as a player, you want to go win every game, but you also take a lot of pride in representing the school and who you are and the fan base that you represent.
You talk about the Deep Blue program that you guys are involved in. It's interesting how media has really changed over the years as well. And you don't have to go back that far, where from a university's perspective, you were just trying to put players out there and hook up players with media, and you were hoping that the local media would cover them and the national media would cover them. But you have a whole department now that can create original media in-house and get these kids exposure and help them with all of that. That's changed during your lifetime in the business and yours in the business stuff. How has that impacted what you guys do, and how has it impacted the athletes to have that internal ability to promote them?
Great question. Yeah, it's really incredible, the opportunities that we have now to do things, and it really makes it so you have to be very strategic in how you're approaching things. And it's not just a matter of, hey, we could do this, but it's like, should we do this or can we do this, and what's the best way to do it? It could be that doing it on our internal platforms is the best way, but it might be that it's not, and so you just have to really look in and spend time and resources on making sure that your approach to what you're doing is not just something that you're doing, but you're doing it purposefully, and it's strategic, and it's benefiting the program, it's benefiting the university, it's benefiting the kids. Well, and I say kids, there's 250 pounds.
Yeah, they're grown man kids.
Yeah,
right? They're man child.
Yeah.
That
just
by the
means
way,
I'm old. That's all.
We had to change how we do things on all of our shows, like our game day shows and all that, because Deep Blue's gotten so good. Yeah. And there's so many, like if folks, if you haven't seen some of these, you go on at BYU TV in the archives and you can see them. And these guys help put these all together. The stories are so compelling and so good. We started to go, guys, we just can't show up for the show and say, oh, and by the way, this segment we're putting Deep Blue in, because we're going to come back crying on the air. Mm-hmm. Yeah, we have to be able to preview those so we can mentally prepare ourselves to be able to deal with the emotion and talk about these things. They're that good. They're some of these are really emotional, amazing stories about these kids. And as the fans get to know the kids personally, that's what we like to do with this show. It's a benefit to everybody. It builds the fan base, right?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, that's getting to know who they are, what they're all about, why they're unique. I think it's something we try to do even strategically as we're preparing TV networks for games and things. The more they get to know who the people are, the more they're going to talk well of them, the more they're going to understand. I mean, if Blaine throws a pick, instead of it being like, what a boneheaded throw, it's like, I'm sure he'll.
No, he throws those all the time. It's not that big of a deal.
Nobody cares. That's what he does.
I'm sure he'll want that one back because they know who Blaine is. They believe in him, and you know what I'm saying. And but it's really true. I mean, but even beyond what we do, like our external area that deals with our marketing, fans experience, and all that. If you come to a game and you see what the atmosphere is like, there's a lot of people that put a lot of effort into making that a good experience for the fans, and so there's just a lot of good things happening with the program that way.
I think one thing I'd like to add, one of my responsibilities is to work closely with our broadcast partners. And I look back at that, we talked about the first live ESPN game, 1984. To think that we were on early, on ESPN. Yeah. They've been a great partner for years and years and years. Then you look at KSL Radio. We've been there for 70 years. Yeah. And then, of course, in the early 2000s, BYU Television came along, and then BYU Radio. And so when you look at all the communications channels that we have at BYU, it's remarkable. I mean, who else has
no one?
A radio station that's on Sirius, and also a television network that's on the two major Dish and Direct, as well as
global.
Yeah, it's
with
global.
An app,
and you can live stream it, and we get emails and things from folks, like we do for the show, but all over the world. Hey, we stayed up into the middle of the night and we watched the game, the basketball game in the Philippines or in South America, or like BYU's fan base is global, and you guys, that's a big responsibility to reach that global audience, but you do it.
Yeah. And we have great partners, because I look at a situation where we go into the Big 12, the conference television package requires us to provide 55 games that are live, right? Well, we've been doing 130, 120 a year. And so there's people over there at BYU Broadcasting like Dave Phillips Jr. that just embraced that, and we just kept running. In fact, we ran faster when we entered the conference, and doing 130 games last year of live sports. It's just remarkable.
I read in the Deseret News the other day that the U, who's been with the Pac-12 network, and now that's gone, and now they're in the Big 12. Now they have to do all that, and they're starting from ground zero, trying to pull that together. And some of our guys have gone up there to show them the way. But when I was reading that, I just thought, BYU TV is so far ahead of the game that in 1 year we kind of became the standard in the league, which is crazy when you think about it. But Kansas is like, what do you mean we got to do all our stuff? Yeah, you got to do everything. Yeah. It's like, well,
we're all spoiled with resources.
We're going to do 3 cameras. Sure. Yeah, well, we can't decide if we went 13 or 10. I'm not quite sure how we're going to.
I'll tell you a little follow-up to that is that my counterpart at the University of Utah called me about 6 months ago and said, what do I do? Yeah. How do I do this? And I had to say, I don't really know, because
we've been doing it for so long.
We have BYU Television. We're just rolling. I tried to help. We've had several conversations. I'm trying to help them with that process. But
it's a massive undertaking.
Yeah, I got off the phone and just went, wow, the luckiest guy in the world. Felt like Lou Gehrig.
Duff Tittle, Brett Pyne are with us. They're the authors of 100 Years of BYU Football. Before we do 5 questions.
Hey, we got Russ Talbot. Russ Talbot's like, and we got to agree with him here. He goes, because we were picking the big events. You guys pick from behind the scenes. He says, hey, great show, guys. You have to include the 1980 comeback against SMU. And we asked Andy for his favorite BYU moment. Andy Reid? He said the 1980 Holiday Bowl.
That's awesome.
So
I was at the Deacon's Corn party. That was a big party for us.
That one's almost too obvious, right? Is that too obvious?
I mean, that's in the history of college football one of the greatest comebacks ever. I mean, probably underrated. Like they'll
totally
talk about,
underrated.
They'll talk about Flutie and all that, but
this was bigger.
I mean, if you think about all that had to happen, I mean, even I'll say this, from the fact that we actually, when they got the ball back and Craig James ran like a 40-yard touchdown, it probably helped us because it didn't kill clock.
Fast. Got the ball right back.
And I mean, there's so many weird things that had to happen, but that game,
blocked punts, returns for touchdowns on special teams, like it's crazy.
Yeah.
The Miami game, the Oklahoma game, there's lots of games.
Yeah, we didn't mention the Oklahoma game. That's one of my all-time favorites.
Oh yeah,
the night,
Nebraska game. I mean, it's just.
And this book has all of that and all the little moments too inside the big moments.
And it's fun to be able to put them in a format like this for the book, and like at work, we have so many great talented people that are helping do things and sharing stories, and who, like Blaine, like you said, who these people are that we're sharing on social media, and we're sharing through BYU television, all these different ways. And this project here that Duff and I undertook just allowed us to approach it a little differently, and it's a fun way. Hopefully people will enjoy.
There's a chapter in there actually I'm really proud of that we talk about the history and evolution of television at BYU, and it's fascinating because we were groundbreaking it clear back in the 80s.
Yeah.
So
even when went independent and announced the deal with Notre Dame, and we have our own TV thing, and people were just like, I guess you could do that if you have all that stuff. Yeah. And then you have to have a friend like ESPN, which helped with scheduling and all that stuff. Before we hit you up with 5 questions, because that's what we do with every guest we have come through here, let me ask you this last question that has more to do with the business of the world we're in today, with social media and reports that go out, tweets that go out, whatever, that are that there's no accountability. So a player's career can be destroyed before he even finds out that it's out there, because there's just so much access. It's so different from when we were at KOHS waiting for records to come in the mail so we could play them.
I miss those days, by the way.
Yeah, those were the glory years. But we couldn't play Rush every song. We had to move along. But how has that changed things and made your lives so much more difficult? We have our show, but we also work at BYU TV, so we're kind of dialed into the same kind of. There are things we won't talk about on this show.
We're really careful
because of what we got going on.
Yeah,
but there's a million other shows that could care less, and they're not tied to the school, so they can say whatever they want. And I came out of the news business. It's just say it, and if it's wrong, you just say, that's wrong. This is the right thing now.
Oh well, we were wrong.
But be first. Be first. That seemed to always matter, and it always bothered me. But we're in this world of everyone trying to be first when it comes to BYU football, BYU baseball, BYU sports in general. You wake up each morning and go, what am I about to find out? Or what's it like now for you guys, which is a total flip-flop of how it used to be?
Well, I think a lot of what you're alluding to really goes into part of our job, too, is that we're helping prepare and train the coaches, the players, the different people that we're servicing and helping to understand the environment and how it is and what it's like, so that hopefully there's some of those, like you described, maybe I won't talk about this or I will talk about that, and so they have a little bit better understanding of some of those things themselves, that on the front side you kind of avoid some of that. But yeah, obviously it's a different world. It's always changing, and part of what we're trying to do is change and adapt, and to always be, ready and doing things that can represent in a positive way. But yeah, there's definitely moments where it's like, okay, here we go. Today's going to be a fun.
I was going to release the schedule, and then someone else did, or they jumped on it, and somebody tipped them off from somewhere else, and now you're chasing your tail. Is it taking fun away from the job, or is it just a new challenge?
I think it's a new challenge. The sad thing in it is, like you said, in that desire to be first, whether it's true or not, comes a lot of collateral damage that happens to individuals. And it can never be fixed. Even if they go back and print, or they make changes to the story or whatever, the people that saw it first, it never changes in their mind, and it just continues. So.
In the newspaper, remember those? The newspapers?
Yeah, rebuttal.
The headlines were on the front page.
The
corrections were inside at the bottom, where it's just like, by the way, guilty, we didn't mean. It was supposed to say not guilty. And then but you're right. You can't, the first impressions are so, but our appetite is for that, right? When we flip through our X feed or whatever, we're looking for, give me a sentence so that I can seem smart to my friends when I say, hey, such and such is leaving. He's in the portal. Or maybe he's not in the portal. Or he went into the portal not because he thought he should be in the portal. Maybe a coach said you should go in the portal. but the spin is completely different depending on the sentence you read on the tweet.
Yeah, I mean, ultimately, I think over time people tend to find sources that they can trust a little bit more than others. And so, I mean, there's going to be some things that are just out there, just like a brush fire that's going to burn out. And maybe when social media first hit, everything was like, oh my gosh, this got said. And now it's a little bit more of like, okay, it got said, but maybe I'll wait and see if that's really.
Yeah, did he really say that? Or did he show me the sound bite?
But that's part of what we're trying to do. We're trying to communicate with our fans, and we're trying to help people understand what's going on with the program. And like you've alluded to, a lot of times it's not a matter of, it's not something that we're going to share. It's just something that the timing of when it's going to be shared might be, like this book is about 100 years. And there's a lot of things that we're planning and getting ready that fans hopefully will enjoy that's going to take place this year, that David Almodova and all the people that work underneath him, we're all kind of working together to try to do some fun things that fans will enjoy, and we'll announce those things as they come up here.
How about that for a tease?
Yeah.
So
anytime something flies over the stadium, we're all for it. Or explodes over the stadium, we're all for that.
We've got 100th year of football, 50th anniversary of the first bowl team, 40th anniversary of the national championship.
This is like anniversary season.
It's a big fun year.
It is. It's going to be a lot of fun, and we've got a lot of things that we're working on that'll. I think the fans are going to love it,
and hopefully it'll give them a better appreciation for just how incredible really this legacy is. I mean, the last 50 years we're top 10 in wins in all of college football. I mean, that's not because we had just one good coach, not because we had one really good quarterback. There's a lot of people that have made that happen over the time, and hopefully they'll understand that as they're reading the book.
One of the reasons we got rid of those orange uniforms. Let's be honest.
That's right. That changed the tide.
If you don't learn from history, you tend to repeat it. And we've never rolled those out since. So
probably a good thing.
I think we've learned that. I think they're ready.
Yeah.
Are you ready?
We're gonna give you. You're both gonna answer. Okay. So I'll throw the question out, and we'll get both of your answers. So, and we do this rapid fire.
And we document them too. By the way.
So we compare.
We're getting older. Can we slow it down so it's not so rapid?
Listen,
hey, you're not older than me.
Andy did just fine. You guys are going to be okay.
Yeah, Andy was great. Your favorite sports movie? Brett first.
Oh my goodness.
Ones that we can talk about, or
no? I don't know. There's. I'm not sure what to make
it's
of
a
that.
Monday night. It is a family show, but we don't have any rules.
I'm going to say Remember the Titans, but I will say I have a one that probably most people don't even know of that my kids love, and it's about cross country. It's called The Overcomer.
The Overcomer. I was thinking of the one from
with Kevin Costner.
Yeah, in California, the kids that were working, having to go harvest in the morning, and McFarland. Oh, yeah.
But this is called what?
Overcomer. It's the same group that did. Did you Facing the Giants? Have you seen? Have you seen that? Which is another sports movie.
Was that Rick Moranis?
No, that's Little Giants.
Those are the Little Giants.
That's Little
Giants.
They
didn't face the Giants. They were.
So I'm giving you a few options.
That's good. I like Remember the Titans. By the way, is the #1 choice on this show over 2 years.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Really?
So what's yours, Duff?
I'm a big baseball guy, so I love Field of Dreams. I think it's awesome. But then there's other things like
if you build it, they will come.
Exactly right, and this is where I'm getting in trouble. Caddyshack and
it's an American classic.
Bull Durham has some of the greatest actual mound visits in baseball history that are kind of captured.
Jim McMahon used to make me do Bill Murray from Caddyshack in team meetings. It's like, Blaine, do the caddy one. Do the caddy one. Ever tell you about the time I was jockeying for the Dalai Lama himself? Jim would make me do that all the time.
That's awesome.
I love Field of Dreams, though.
Moneyball is another one where now,
movie.
if you're flipping channels and Moneyball's on, you stop. There's not a lot of there's those shows where they had an impact on you. We just stop and go, where are we at in this movie?
Yeah, those are two classics. So Remember the Titans and Field of Dreams for sure. Okay, your favorite singer or band?
I got a pretty good idea how this one's going to go.
It's going to be in the classic rock realm, right?
Yeah.
It's Duff first, and then Brett.
Duff's wheelhouse.
I can't give you just one. I kind of heard the interview with Andy a little bit, and he was giving you.
He only gave us two. He gave famous female and famous male.
Here we go.
He went Kenny Chesney and Taylor
Swift. We had to drag that
first album I ever purchased in 1977, Styx Grand Illusion.
Styx.
And I have been a massive Styx fan. I've probably seen him live 30 times, maybe.
Dennis DeYoung.
I've seen him one time, and they were awesome.
I am a huge Tommy Shaw fan, and I've been backstage with him twice. And the first time it happened, I figured, okay, I guess I can die now.
You're killing yourself if you don't believe it.
I also love Sammy Hagar, the Red Rocker.
Sammy Hagar.
I thought you were going to say Rush right out of the gate.
No, I'm going to Vegas this summer to see Sammy.
Sammy is.
They're going to play the Van Halen material.
MGM?
Yeah, MGM.
Wait, is he? Where's he coming to?
So he's traveling the country this year with his band, The Circle.
Oh, man.
We've been down to his place.
Yeah, we went to his place in
Cabo
Cabo.
Yeah.
He wasn't there, but
No,
we
but
were.
he does once in a while make an appearance there, and that's
Twice
like
a
a
year.
big night when he comes.
His
But
birthday bash.
I'd go down to Vegas to see Sammy, so I need to get that info.
That's
from
my
him.
number one thing on my bucket list right now is seeing Sammy in Cabo
Oh, yeah.
on his birthday
Yeah,
bash.
Brendan and I have seen him there once.
Yeah. Wow.
So-
I'm jealous.
I hate to say it, but I'm going to say Styx as well.
Wow.
There's a
But
shock.
It was, it's the same era. And I will say one of the times when Duff saw them backstage, I was with him.
Yep.
And we made up a Jim McMahon jersey because JY, well, the band's from Chicago, basically
Right.
the original. And JY, one of the founding members of the band, is a big
Huge
Jim
Bears
McMahon fan because he's the Bears.
From the Bears.
Yeah.
And he was pretty jazzed about that.
So he asked us if we'd do it, and I did it. And then I went to a show later on.
Was he wearing it on stage?
No, we gave it to him after the show.
Nice.
I held it up in the show, though, so he could see it.
Yeah.
And he pointed at me and just was like,
That's awesome.
A
Styx
couple
is
of
a great
Styx
group.
guys.
Yep.
All right.
Okay, how about now we start with Brett on this one. Favorite breakfast cereal?
Ooh. Honestly, you're not going to like this, but it's probably Life or Chex.
Andy's was Chex, but he does the honey Chex. So a little
I'm
sweeter.
plain.
That wasn't enough
I'm
for
plain.
me on that. You're plain checks?
and my favorite,
I do regular Life, not cinnamon Life.
I'm cinnamon life.
Okay.
Yeah.
Regular life.
Do you put sugar on the regular life?
Sometimes, but usually not.
You just take life. You just
do
take
it.
life.
Just
head on.
take it as it
It
comes.
takes life as it comes. Wow.
What do you
can't do
got?
it without
Duff?
sugar on it. I'm going to go with either Cinnamon Toast Crunch or
That's a popular.
Very
one.
popular.
Reese's Pieces or whatever they call that
Reese's,
thing.
I've never had the Reese's.
Oh, Reese's,
haven't either.
whatever it's called.
Piece.
It's,
Reese's. Yeah, it's like it's like
Reese's.
something
Reese's-
puffs.
Reese's Puffs.
something
That's
puffs.
it.
Is
Yeah,
it
that's
really
it.
that different
Reese's
from
Puffs.
peanut butter Captain Crunch? I don't know.
It's got chocolate in it. So if you
Oh.
had a chocolate Captain Crunch and
I
a peanut
might-
butter and put them together,
I might go for that. I
You
might have
got
to
it.
try that one.
The three decisions I face each morning is there's a Fruit Loop container, a Captain Crunch container,
And
a
Lucky Charms?
No, Frosted Flakes
Frosted
container.
Flakes.
I'd go there for
And then
sure.
my wife's like, "What are you, 7?" I go, "I'll take the Captain Crunch."
Okay, so this one's a little different than what we've already talked about. What's your favorite year of the 100 years of BYU football? Your favorite year? We'll start with Duff on this one.
My first year at BYU as a full-time employee was 96. And that season is really, really hard to beat.
Yeah.
No offense to the 84 season.
No, none taken.
here's
Sark is
what-
great.
Let me tell you why. 83 was our senior year in high school. And that following fall, we went to probably 9 games. We went to some road games. We saw the bowl game in 83. And then I went on a mission. And I missed the 84
Oh, you
season.
missed 84 and 85.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's
Yeah,
right.
it got
It's timing. It's
83
tough
was
timing.
83 was a great year. People ask me, I'm like, I don't know. 83, we had a ton of talent on that team and lost the opener to Baylor and then won every game after that. That was a
Yeah.
pretty special season too.
I mean,
was.
83 may be one of the best teams ever.
I would.
Yeah.
We talked about this when Steve was on the show, when Steve Young was on the show, and that may be arguably that's maybe the most talented team that's ever
Yeah,
played.
he
here.
still hasn't gotten over the whole Baylor.
Oh, I'm
you bring
sure.
up Baylor,
Yeah.
and he's like,
He's like, do we have to talk about that? Can we talk about
But
Missouri?
the question is, does 84 happen without 83?
Probably
right?
not.
And winning
no.
all those games.
I think we had to
and-
come in
yeah.
where, even though we weren't ranked highly, I think it's like, well, they were really good. They were number 7 last year.
Yep.
But
Then
as soon as you won,
as soon as we won, it's like, oh yeah, they're good again.
Yeah. Yep.
96 is what gives the deep thinker hope because Sark wasn't that great his first year.
Yeah.
And then the second year in the offense,
Lights out.
he was fantastic. Jake, who was here just last week or 2 weeks ago, same thing. His
Yeah.
first 4 games weren't great. Lost all 4 of them. Here's year 2 in the offense, goes through spring ball, doesn't throw an interception, which shows something. It
Right.
shows the game slowing down
And
for
the
him.
beauty
all
for
that
him
stuff.
is Sark came in as a JC transfer and was here too.
Yeah.
Because you couldn't play 4 games in redshirt. So Jake's got this advantage that he played in 4 games. Now he has 2 seasons left.
Yeah.
He could be really good by the time he's a senior. Really good.
I really do like that analogy because I think what happened after that 95 season is the guys said, we got to get better. I think there's a pure correlation between the 2 years.
Yeah, I love it. Wouldn't that be nice to have another
Yeah.
96? Woo.
Well,
What say you, Brett?
boy, this is a really tough one. And it's a little bit of nostalgia for me, and maybe because I was working with the program more, but 2009 is a year that rings for me. We had Dennis and Max and Harvey and
Offensive skill
I
positions
love that
maybe as
team.
good as they've ever been, right?
I mean, Austin had just left early for the league too.
Yeah.
And so, but still, that group, and we unveiled. Well, there's some stuff in the book about this too. But the Royal uniform again.
Yes.
And the Oklahoma game. That was a good group, and
That's a fun year.
And a lot of those guys had been part of a lot of good teams in that era. So.
Yeah.
I'd have to say that's 1A for me. For
Glenn
sure.
Lumen says, I prefer the 79 game with San Diego State. That was epic.
Oh, wow. That was
and
epic.
Glenn's in the Philippines
Was
this morning.
that? And I'm without going back in the Mark Wilson.
Three passes, three touchdowns. Yeah. I watched that on television back home in high school. And I was like, what in the world is going on? This team is crazy.
It was on ABC. I remember they made a
And
big
you
deal
don't
out of it.
realize how good our running backs were in that era. But Homer Jones and
Eric Lane, wow.
One of those
Yeah.
passes from Mark Wilson was like a 75-yard run that was a dump-off pass that the
Yeah.
running back just took and just.
And you know who the game announcer was?
79?
Al Michaels.
It was Al Michaels on ABC.
Yeah.
Yeah.
1979.
Hey, San Diego State, there's been some great San Diego State games. That game where Marshall Falk and Ty Detmer went 52-52, I broadcast that
was
one.
all
And I was exhausted.
Yeah, I'm sure you were. You
was
had to
fun.
have been.
2009. Who do we beat? What bowl game did we play in 9?
That
that Arizona?
That was the Win Bowl in. I call it the Win Bowl, but it was the Las Vegas Bowl against Oregon State, which
That's
at the
right.
time it was the two highest ranked teams ever playing that bowl game.
Right.
And we
both
whoop-
top 20 teams.
Didn't we whoop them pretty
And
good?
We whirled them.
took care of them.
Yeah.
But there was wind gusts. Their punter had a couple of punts that went like 9 yards.
came
Listen,
back.
we were at
Yeah.
that game with the kids because I was a sportscaster
Yeah.
down there. We were bugged because they canceled the helicopter flyover because the wind.
Can I tell you that?
Like, come on,
Hey,
you
when
love
you,
the flyover,
when
too.
you guys, when
That's
you
half the reason I was
when you
there.
read this book, you end up doing exactly what we're doing.
Right.
You just start reminiscing.
Yeah.
But remember this? Do you remember that? I remember this,
And,
right?
and that's
all there.
hopefully what it brings out in people because
I love it.
everybody's going to have different things that they enjoy.
Sure.
And hopefully we've brought a few things back to
covered it
people's
all.
memories.
So
We hope we told some stories that they've never heard before because when we did the nearly 100 interviews we did for this book, we heard stories we'd never heard before.
Yeah.
And we were there. You
And
got
most
to go
of
read
them-
the Doman one at Lavelle's last game.
Oh, yeah.
Oh,
Lavelle's
yeah.
final
There's some
game.
good
stuff
the
in there.
story
So-
that Doman told me, I was there with him and I didn't know what happened. There's a teaser for you.
Yeah.
okay, I'm going to read that one. So okay, now last question, and we'll start with Brad on this one. Your favorite little known fact about BYU football?
Wow.
Yeah, we only ask good questions, mostly
Yeah.
good questions on this show. Sometimes we don't ask great
Favorite
questions.
little known?
Yeah. That's in this book. That's
In this book.
Yeah, it's a favorite little known fact from the book. Like, oh, this was a nugget. I'm so happy we have this thing in there. Nobody will know about it.
Well, I'm going to put something in here that doesn't have anything to do necessarily with the football team, but there's at least one family that might like it. But there's something about someone that worked on the sideline chain gang in this book that was working on the sidelines for decades. That those are people. Their family probably knows he did it, but not a lot of other people did. So it was fun to be able to include something.
It's
like
Robbie
that.
Bosco's in-laws.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah, they worked the sidelines for years. Is that it?
It's not, but.
No.
I just was
page?
thinking about that.
What
Karen
page is
Bosco's
this?
family worked the sidelines for years. So
So there's a story in there about this thing, but you're not going to tell us what it is.
There's
We
a
have
little
to
mention
we have
in
to
there,
read it.
yeah.
Okay.
that's pretty cool.
But I mean, I guess he's just trying to say we tried to find little things that might be relevant to people, and one big game that was a big game for other reasons for the program was also a big game because it was the final game for this particular person.
That's fun.
Yeah.
That's fun. Okay, what about you, Duff? Favorite little known?
Well, I would say the Newt Rockney Coaches Clinic at BYU in 1923.
Yeah.
But it was in another book that I wrote 20 years ago, roughly. So there might be a few people that know that one. I think one of the least known games that it was historic and changed everything was 1979 at Texas A&M.
Oh,
to start the
Mike Lacey
season.
catches the go ahead. Yeah.
Yeah.
And, the fact that Mark Wilson had an appendix and
Yeah, that's a great story. Do you tell the whole background behind all that? That's a great story.
That's the first KBYU game. I remember it was on Channel 11.
Wow. Interesting.
My dad
Nice.
was the spotter for Jay and whoever it was doing
Probably, I'm trying to think in that year, that would have been, gosh, I don't even know who would have done that game because Royce wouldn't have been doing it yet, right?
I don't think so. I'll tell you another thing that I really was a fun chapter is between the last regular season game in '84 and the bowl game.
Yeah.
There was about a month of just buzz, and I'm sure you remember.
Oh, I remember it well.
Nobody thought we should be, and da 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 da. And so we did a whole chapter on the back and forth of media or coaches who were either attacking BYU or supporting BYU.
That's fun stuff.
And there's some fun stuff in that.
It's funny because I remember during the year, as we were working our way up before we were number one, you know how coaches always say, hey, just one game at a time. Our kids don't look at the polls. Come on. Like every week we would win, and then we would just wait, and we'd go, you know who needs to lose this next week? These guys, and these guys need to lose, and we need to kill these guys.
Yeah.
Oh, we were calculating it out all season long, and anybody that tells you that we weren't is lying.
There's a great quote in there from Jim Herman that says, we'd look at it every single week, and sometimes we'd win and watch us fall in the polls and go, I guess we should have beat them by more than 30.
We're going to have to win by 50 next week. Like, we literally were doing that.
So you guys have sent these books to our house, right?
Yeah.
So I was going to have you autograph these for us, but we'll wait and get those.
Yeah, we'll get autographs from you.
These will go back with you. DeseretBook.com, 100 Years of BYU Football, Duff Tittle and Brett Pyne, who we've worked with our whole career. And so we've lived a lot of these moments, but this is an awesome job. I know the Deseret book is thrilled, and you can get it. It's all over social media now. And now it's on the Wise Guys. It'll be all over this week, too, on our stuff. So thanks for coming.
Thanks so much, guys.
Yeah,
we appreciate it.
And we apologize if we're pains in the butt, when the games are on, as we're all trying to do our jobs.
That's right.
But we've managed to do this and be friends all these years, and that's not easy in this business.
Well, you've helped us because you're both in the book, so it's like there's content for us by what you guys have done. So it's all good.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Awesome. Okay, DeseretBook.com. Buy it today, and it's a great book. It's a great gift. Christmas is just around the corner, and this isn't going anywhere because it's 100 years. It took 100 years to make.
100 Years of BYU Football by Duff Tittle and Brett Pyne.
Yeah.
Yes.
When you guys do a book signing, let us know.
Yeah.
So we'll let everybody know. All right. Thanks for coming in.
Thanks for having us on.
Thank you.
It was a lot of fun.
Yep. And in our casual fashion, you guys can just take off. You don't have to hang anymore.
just
that's
get up,
right. Yeah,
walk
we just
out.
get up.
We don't have commercials. It's just like it's the show sponsored. Brady Plus just lets us do whatever we want, and then you get to go.
It's awfully nice to have a good sponsor.
Yes, it is.
I'll go put my shoes back on.
Yeah, sorry. Yes, Jack makes us take the shoes
here's the
off.
thing.
That Blaine's got a whole thing going on.
I've
over
never
there.
worn shoes ever in this show.
Sibby, here, I have white socks.
Nice.
Look at that. Look at those White Sox.
I'm not putting my feet up.
No, I
here.
mean,
this is a table of dignity over here.
We'd have to have some people come help us get them down.
It got real informal real fast.
It's very informal. That's what we love about it. Like, we don't get to do everything we do in studios
Blaine
and
and I
television
put our
is
feet
like
on the table over here. Don't eat over here.
Yeah,
you guys can eat.
And we'd like you guys to come back. We had a ton of basketball questions we didn't get to, but we'll deal with that later.
We'll do that next time.
Okay.
So,
Okay.
all right. Thanks, guys.
Duff and Brett.
Thanks for having us
By the
on.
way, this sets a personal record of Orem Tigers on the show.
We've never
at one
had
time.
three
in the
on
same room.
set all at the same time.
Yeah,
It seems like we
Harley
should-
was he was Zoom out of Vegas. So
Governor Herbert.
We've had
was here.
two. We've never had
two.
three.
We've never had
What
three.
about Chad Lewis? He's been on, right?
He's been on,
here.
but we
But
never
not
had
with
three.
somebody else. Okay.
Yeah.
Three is the most ever. I feel a little overwhelmed.
I feel like we should maybe induct Blaine into the club.
I am a big Orem fan.
Yeah.
Like, I got a lot of, over the years, I think that's probably my favorite group of alums.
Wow.
It's Orem High.
Just bring
Yeah.
Puka
Tiger
or someone
Pride.
else
Tiger
in.
Pride.
Yeah, we'll do it. So
Thanks, guys.
Thank you,
Thanks
guys.
for having us
See ya.
on.
You got it.